Good morning, YouTube. It is 9 p.m. in the great state of Texas, and this is about the fourth or fifth time I've done this audio. So hopefully this one works because I'm kind of tired of doing it. So today we're going to work with not poplar, but we're going to work with white limba. And I have horrible memory, so there might have been a time when I did use this wood. However, I can't remember because I've done so many projects. But looking at the wood itself, not a whole lot of razzle-dazzle, I guess you could say. But it is going to be an interesting video because super glue is going to save this project, just like the title says. So when I get these grab bags of wood blanks, I don't know what I'm getting in the grab bag. I'm sure there's a description, but those are a lot of words and I ain't about to read them. So I like to think that most of these blanks, when they come in the mail, typically will come as good, solid blanks of wood. However, I've discovered over the past couple of years that that's not always the case. And this is going to be one of those projects where, you know, things just don't go your way. However, experience and ingenuity are going to come in handy in this one. So going from a blank to a cylinder shape, not a whole lot of issues. The wood actually cuts really soft. It's a really nice wood to work with, not getting a lot of resistance against the chisels. Everything's kind of just melting away, so that's always a good thing. However, a little bit later here in the video, we're going to have some issues as far as keeping everything together. But I'm assuming, just like with any piece of wood, over time there's going to be cracks and imperfections, but you're not going to notice right away until you actually start turning and getting into the project. And this is one of those projects where that definitely happens to me. So what we did was pour a lot of super glue and hold on to your butt kind of situation. But we get into a nice cylindrical shape, and then I start doing the parting. This is when I really realized that the wood's really nice and soft, not getting a lot of feedback, cuts right through, pops right off. And you can kind of see the cool part of the grain there a little bit. Looks really cool, really happy with that. So then we just start doing our flat surfacing here so that we can start the actual gouging portion of it. But here in just a little bit, you're going to notice we're going to have some issues, just a little bit. So I stop the lathe and I start to notice these giant cracks that are starting to form. And I've seen this before in the past. Typically what it is just the wood separating from a natural crack that's already in there. And then when I reverse it on the chuck jaws, it kind of makes it a little bit bigger. So I poured a hell of a lot of super glue in there, put some wood dust in between the cracks, let that sit for a little bit, and then just prayed to God that this did not explode. But I was totally expecting it to kind of explode on the lathe. I've had this happen to me so many times before, where I'll have these small little natural cracks, and then it just takes one misstep with a chisel, and then it just completely explodes. And that's what I'm expecting the entirety of the time that I'm doing this. I'm starting the gouging portion thinking, this is absolutely just going to break, and it's going to look really cool, so you might not get a project out of it, but you're going to have one hell of a shot. But I really took my time. I didn't go as thin on the lips of the pole that I usually do, just left a little bit more extra space, and it actually held up really nicely, so I was really happy about that. So one last obstacle to get through was the actual lid itself, and there were natural cracks in this one as well, which I did not film, but I essentially did the same thing. I took some super glue, poured it in those little cracks, and then put a little wood dust and just let that sit, and just really took my time as far as gouging out the mortise here. And then you'll really notice that once I turn it over onto the lathe and flip it over into the chuck jaws here. I did not spend a lot of time separating the actual waste block with the parting tool. Usually I work down the entirety of the waste block, but I knew as time went on, the more chips and vibration of the actual chisels on that piece, the more likely that I was going to have like a catastrophic failure. So I worked down just a little area and then just took that parting tool and popped that right off. Tighten up the chuck jaws just a little bit, not enough to open that crack back up, but just enough to hopefully keep it together while we finish up this part right here. So just really taking our times with both the square and the large round carbide tool, and everything on this part goes really smooth. I was actually surprised it held up as well as it did, which is always a plus. But now that we got that finished, all we have to do is make it through our sanding, our polishing, and we'll be all done. But super glue definitely came in clutch on this project. So if you are a woodworker out there and you ever run into that, just pour a bunch of super glue into it and just see what happens. Luckily for me, it held up nicely, and here's just the mess and the aftermath of everything that's left over. And it's always amazing how that one small little block can create so many issues. But I was ready just to be done with it. I didn't use my Yorkshire grit on this one, just polishing up with that wood wax. And the wood grain actually came out really nice. This actually looks really good once you get it polished. But nobody was more surprised than me that the wood glue actually, or not the wood glue, but the super glue held up. But really nice piece of wood. White Limba looks really nice, and just happy I got done with the project this week. But hope you liked it. Hope you got something out of it. I'll see you guys in the next one. All right, peace.